You're up. You're prepared.
I'll tell you what, straight to the lines after pit, man. Thanks, boys. That's a tough act to follow, isn't it? Yeah, stick the youngest brother in again. He'll fine. That's okay. Firstly, a massive thank you to Sim, the footy club, Phil down the bolo when we get down there, everybody else who helped set up, make the day possible. Obviously, you know, we know the old man. He loved the show, loved being the centre of attention, and I think if you glance around now, you can see that we've certainly made him that. So I think a very special thank you to our Member for Parliament, Christy McBain, too. If you haven't seen, the boy from Tooleybuck ended up with a farewell message in federal parliament, which I think that just about sums up Dad in a nutshell, doesn't it? I mean, who'd have thought that he'd end up, the old Froggadolla would end up with a 4-minute spiel in federal politics. So thanks for that, Christy. Very much appreciated. Now, I probably will try and sort of talk a little bit like Dad in this. I'd love to get Peter back up here. I don't expect what the man delivers, so I'll do my best. Croc! Don't whinge guts. Call on Mrs. Chick. You're dead for 1,000,000 years, son. You've got to enjoy each day. Right now we know that's what Dad would be saying to us if he was here with us. And this was Dad's everyday philosophy in life, in a nutshell. And boy, oh boy, did he live this philosophy to the fullest. And I know that each and every one of you here has at some stage been dragged into a memorable, entertaining, or bloody hilarious time with my old man. A crazy adventure, a drink, a yarn shared, a punt, or a memorable footy moment. Dad was always the entertainer, and his mission was seemingly to drag as many of us along as he could find, even if we didn't want to. I'll just pause for 2 seconds, have a think about a memory with Dad, and I'm sure you'll have a smile or a laugh. And that's what he would have wanted. He would have wanted people smiling, laughing, thinking about those good moments, and not whinge gutsing. For reference, whinge guts was one of our cats back in the day that couldn't meow properly and sounded like it was always whinging, so Dad would say, whinge guts! Don't whinge guts! Yeah, Grey the cat. The character and entertainer that you all saw was no different from what we got from Frog as our dad. My childhood was a blessed one, full of love, support, and you guessed it, Frog's funny and always entertaining antics. Fishing, football, family holidays to Malakuta, cricket games with mental as anything, breakfast with Jimmy Barnes, you know, the usual upbringing sort of stuff. And I remember Dad every Thursday bringing me a hamburger and chips up to school. Dad loved being the centre of attention at home. Probably shouldn't surprise anyone too much. Be it annoying the absolute shit out of our neighbours with his loud hailer and siren, donning the kimono that Auntie Loretta got him for Christmas and a Santa hat as he had a VB stubby just because it was making us laugh. That was some of the funny moments. Dad was always bringing that infectious energy of his into our household. Rocking up with another footballer to live with us for a period of time. Bringing a crew around randomly for dinner, lunch or breakfast, or just to consume a few VBs and partake of one of Dad's famous impromptu hat parties. That was also regular habits of the old man that brought great fun and amusement to us boys. Not so sure it always brought the same level of amusement and fun to Mum. He also took everything we threw at him and laughed it off. From lacing his Benson and Hedges with match heads. Boom! Or hiding every single lighter and match in the house. And watching his frustrations mount as the cravings increased. Or drinking 12 boxes of his Christmas giveaway wine between the three of us when he and Mum were away for 2 weeks, one New Year's Eve period. Now, before you do the maths on that and wonder how the hell we are all three of us still alive, we did have a lot of help that summer, and I do know that there's some culprits out there that certainly helped us with it that summer, if you do remember. The 96 in 96, it was a good summer. Or lacing his beers with all sorts of weird and wonderful concoctions when he wasn't looking. Salt, capsicum spray, tequila, or indeed just warming it up in the coffee machine till it was near boiling. These were just some of the tricks that we played. Knowing as much as it caused him great frustration, Dad loved the humour behind it and always played along. Dad was always there to support and look out for me too. From the early years of encouraging me at football, when I was absolutely shithouse, to later in life, when he managed to talk an American sheriff and shop owner out of locking me up at Plugger's wedding, simply for impersonating Steve-O and tackling a very aggressive-looking ceramic bear statue. That one might have cost him a lazy $500 US. Sorry, Dad. Obviously, football was a huge part of our upbringing. I like to say that in our family, football wasn't put on hold for family life was put on hold for football. And it was all about the mighty Seagulls and the Kangaroos. They were mighty in the 90s, I do promise. This is the Kangaroos, I swear to God. Oh, and the more than occasional, I have to mention, the more than occasional mention of just how good Dad was at Tooleybuck. But it was maroon and white and royal blue and white all the way in our house, and no other team was ever allowed to be considered. And as we all know, Dad was absolutely passionate about his footy, and he did love the Roos. Dad fell in love with the Roos when my Uncle Jim played games for them in the 60s, and it was a love affair that continued right up to one of our last conversations. Let's just say that in the last 5 years or so, we did talk quite regularly about football and the Kangaroos, and let's just say in the last 5 years or so, these conversations had been anything but glowing in our praise for our beloved team. I think they've had 13 wins in 5 years. Go Roos. In fact, upon reflection, I think the old man must have known what was coming, with the last 2 games of the Kangaroos season this year resulting in a net loss of 224 points in 2 games. I can understand him not wanting to hang around for that shit. During some of the Roos' more successful times, they did happen. During some of the Roos' more successful times, I'll never forget all of us sitting in our lounge room in Bayview Drive, watching the 1994 prelim final. After we had led for pretty much most of the game, Gary Ablett Sr. got virtually his only kick of the game and won it for the Cats after the siren. McBain, I know you enjoyed that. Not in our household, mate. There was silence. For 10 seconds or more, you could hear a pin drop. Then Dad exploded. Fuck me! He yelled, banging the arm of his recliner. At that, our faithful Labrador Sam, fearing his master was suffering, as dogs have that innate ability to do, rushed over to Dad and promptly copped a whack on its nose. Fuck me! Again, as Dad leapt out of his recliner, strode over the TV, banged it in the side like it was the TV's bloody fault that Ablett had kicked that goal and ruined the Kangaroo season. There was one more, fuck me, as Dad stormed off to bed at 4:30 in the afternoon, not to be seen again till breakfast. Yeah, true story. And yeah, I know you loved it, McBain, I know. But it was his beloved Tathra Seagulls that was where Dad's true footy passion lay. And as a kid, I felt like an absolute king knowing my dad was the president of our local club. I'd sit there for hours just listening to Dad talking to whichever footballers he'd invited over on that particular day. They were my heroes as a youngster, and I viewed Dad as their leader. And I'm so lucky that so many of the best footy memories of my playing days involve my dad. Funnily enough, Dad was the only voice I could ever hear when I was playing. With those distinct gravelly tones of his, seemingly resonating around Lawrence Park and being able to drown out even the passing cars and motorbikes that were roaring by. I'd spend half the game sucking up to local umpire Dave Bolton at every centre bounce and ruck stoppage just to get that little bit of advantage, only to have my good work wiped out by, "Oh, Dave, that was an absolutely awful shithouse decision." Uh-oh. Needless to say, Dave's demeanour towards me would instantly change. And funnily enough, after that, every free kick seems to go against me. Thanks heaps, Dad. It was also a special moment for me and Dad when one cold, muddy day at Malakuta, Dad and I played our only game of footy together. In what will go down as one of the most famous reserve games in Scarful history, it was a tight tussle. And we were narrowly defeated by the Malakuta Cairn River Tiger Sharks by 205 points. Dad's stat line that day read something along the lines of, and after lining up at full forward, I was in the forward pocket. I was 13, didn't know whether to laugh at Dad playing or shit myself because it was my first game of Rezzies. So Dad's stat line for the day read something like 0 tackles, 0 pressure acts, 0 score assists, 0 handballs, 1 VB stubby at half time, 1 mark, and, drum roll, the most amazing talked about knee kick in the history of not only Scarful but AFL. And you all thought I was a shithouse kick. Dad and I shared quite a few post-match and footy trip away memories too. Who of us that were there will ever forget Dad up at Jindabyne, ordering his dinner off the poor old chef, who, under the absolute pressure of being hit at the last second with 30-odd steaks that we'd ordered, was sweating up a storm, suffering. Cue Dad waltzing up, hand outstretched in that famous frog fashion. Mind you, this is after he'd had his typical Arvo kip when he'd had a couple of drinks and he'd maybe been asked to leave one of the earlier venues. But anyway, that's another story. Cue Dad walking up to the chef who, as I said, under the pump, sweating up a storm, not wanting to talk to anybody. "Big fella, Rob Little, I own the Tartra pub." Of course, the chef was unable to shake hands as he's busy flipping about 15 kilograms of prime sirloin steak. So he just nods a little in that polite, piss-off kind of way. A pause. Then, unperturbed, Dad pushed on. "Big fella, would you mind whipping us up a couple of poached eggs?" Apart from the million good times and all the laughs that the footy club has brought us, it's no surprise that with Dad at the helm, the club saw such amazing success and is the most successful club in Scarful history, a fact that Dad was immensely proud of. Dad's passion to win was legendary, and some of the side bets he engaged with caused opposition presidents and power brokers to break out in a cold sweat. "Big fella, will we make it 500 today?" "Oh, okay, you don't want to set me at 500? Let's make it 1,000 then." On the odd occasion that his bet lost, he would simply pay up and come out with his famous line of, "It's only money, we'll just earn some tomorrow." As much as he craved the club's success, I know he was most proud of the three of us boys playing a combined total of over 600 senior games and winning 12 premierships for the club. And I'm sure that, like me, Ant and Doug loved playing for the old man just as much as I did. But we weren't the only ones. I'd reckon most players that have donned the maroon and white over the years have put in that extra 10 to 20% just because of the old man's passion and drive for the club. Oh, the very occasional bit of petrol money funded by Dad didn't harm the club's chances either. In later years, Dad morphed into Poppy Frog, and you have just recently heard how much he have touched the lives of all his grandchildren. I'll forever be grateful of Dad's influence on my 4 kids. All the great qualities that Dad possessed were always on full display with them, provided they threw the boat anchor in at exactly the right moment and angle for his liking, and vacated the TV when the Arvo races came on. The kids just loved him. And as you've just heard, particularly loved his famous poppy breakfasts. The grandkids were just very lucky that they never got served one of Dad's go-to breakfasts that we got back in our childhood. A mix of tomatoes, eggs, and about 6 tablespoons of salt and sugar, all boiled and stirred together, spooned onto white toast with about half a kilo of butter. We affectionately called it spew. Dad was also a loving father-in-law to my beautiful wife. And like all of us, I know Sarah loved Dad's amusing stories and anecdotes. Dad also loved the fact he had a family member with medical knowledge to call upon. And there were many conversations along the lines of, "Hey Sarah, what do you think of this?" Insert ailment here. Might be. I think he felt she owed him this service, as he could never quite accept the fact that Sarah is an avid Collingwood supporter and that Noah and Grace have also followed in her footsteps. A daughter-in-law and grandkids following the Pies. Oh, the shame. I'd just like to finish by saying how much I loved my dad and how I will always feel like I won the lottery having both he and Mum as my parents. So while I'm sad and I'll always miss him, I also feel privileged and just so unbelievably bloody lucky to have had him as my dad and my mate. We shared so many wonderful and hilarious moments together that will never, ever be forgotten. I'll always feel grateful for the simple life lessons he taught. Have clean toilets and tidy lawns at your venue. Always work hard, welcome all, and do it with a smile and a laugh. Quick side note, it is impossible and was impossible to get to what Frog considered the level of a tidy lawn, but we all do our best. But his most important lesson, to enjoy every single day like it's your last. And that's exactly what he did, right up until his last moments. They say you go to your happy place at the end. And in Dad's last hour before they made him comfortable and he fell asleep, Dad was convinced, 100% convinced, that the sink and towel dispenser in his room was a TAB machine and that he was having a schooner of beer and he was on the punt. Personally, I reckon that's a pretty bloody good full stop for the Frog. Love you, Dad. Sorry. I do have a PS. For those of you who were wondering, the tinny bugger did end up getting his poached eggs.
Hello. First of all, I'd like to thank everyone for coming. I know a lot of you have travelled far and wide to be here today, and Dad would have truly appreciated it. I imagine if he was here with us, he'd be running around, shaking hands, buying beers, telling yarns, calling everybody gun, and generally making sure everybody was having a good time. You all knew Dad as a publican, an overtly social guy who loved people, was always kind, and always did his best to lift the spirits of those around him, no matter what walk of life they came from. That part of his personality has been documented extensively over the years, so I'd like to reflect a little bit about some of his other qualities that resonated strongest with me, that are a little bit off the beaten track. First, he was a handy problem solver. You had to be to successfully run a small business back in the day. He never panicked, no matter how tough or chaotic things got, and always managed to rally the troops to achieve whatever goal was required at the time, and most importantly, never ever gave up. He didn't coin the phrase, through hard work all things are possible, but he sure did live by that mantra. Whether it was building football teams, growing lawns, finding fishing spots, or building up pubs over the years. He was a goal-oriented individual who never complained about the work and effort needed to achieve them, and boy did he put in the work in. I always remember the long 18-hour days that was required to keep the pub functioning over the silly season when we had a band on every night for about 4 weeks straight. He also was a creature of habit, a man who had a certain way of doing things, whether it was baiting a hook, boiling an egg, filling out a TAB form, or delivering a lawn bowl. There was always a right way to do it, which he always loved telling you about enthusiastically. Although he had a regimented schedule, he could always adjust if required, depending on what life was throwing at him at the time. And he managed to adjust and fight to the very end to get the most out of life that he could. I'm pretty sure that if society was collapsing around him, he would still have found comfort running through his schedule, performing each task with clockwork accuracy, and not worrying too much about it. That was just the way that he was. Finally, I just want to say that he was particularly fond of the saying, celebrate your victories and mourn your losses. By this he meant that you should definitely enjoy, with great vigour, the rewards of reaching your goals, but that failure is always an option, and when you do fail, you should reflect on it and figure out how to do better the next time around, and then hook in and have another go. Dad never seemed to reflect too long though before picking himself back up and having another crack at the problem at hand. So with that said, I think we should raise a glass and make an exception for Dad, or the Frog as he was known, to reflect and celebrate at the same time just this once. He wouldn't have wanted it any other way. Love you, Dad. Cheers.
Oh, thanks everyone so much for coming. You can tell I'm the smart one, I went last. Don't know how I worked that out. Croc, unbelievable. I love sitting and listening to Croc. He reminds me of the stories and it all floods back. Croc remembers it all so well. Plugger was wondering if he could even get up. Man, that was awesome, eh? Doug said he's not the one to do the public speaking. Mate, you killed it.
Send rockets to the,
Yeah, we always laugh, when you talk about old mate that's not a rocket scientist. Well, yeah, we've got one here, so that's all right. I was gonna do like the boys did and write something down. Like I've been going to do it for ages, and I just didn't. So we're winging it. Thanks, Croc, again for these memories. I that thing about growing up and having a pretty cool childhood there at the pub. Mum and Dad created that, and I can remember just being able to get a bloody plate of hot chips with bacon cooked on top of it, and that was pretty special. That was normal. And then walking in after, I'm pretty sure it was after school one day, and walking through the top lounge there with the boys, and all the road cases were coming in. Johnny McVitie setting up today. I appreciate this, all the road cases are in again, and it's like, oh yeah, what's on this one, and on the side of the road cases, and this is a very distinct memory, was INXS. And we've walked through, and I said to these fellas, I said, Jesus, that's a stupid name for a band. What's that? Oh, yeah, that was that was a good call, wasn't it? Yeah, they were, what was it, 12 or 13 years later, they were playing Wembley Stadium, sold out, It looked pretty good then. And then, again, I only went on this tangent because Croc's memory's there, but the other one was, Croc mentioned Chisel, and going down, Mum and Dad used to rig it up so us boys could go down, before the gigs would start and say g'day to the bands. And we went out to the old Lions room there one time, and out the back of the pub rooms, the old rooms. I don't know if there'd be people here who remember the old Lions room. And again, I can see it like it was yesterday. There's the tables down the side of the room. There's just down the middle for people to move up and down. And we hit the bottom of the stairs and turn into the Lions room, and through we go. And you're looking straight down. And at the end, there's Barnes, like classic Barnesy, the headband's on, the hair's flying everywhere. And I'm not making it up. The bottle of vodka's in his hand. And he's had a swig, and someone's saying, Barnesy, you got to come and meet the publican's kids. And he turned and he walked straight at us, and we're lined up there, and he's walked up, and because he was doing all these, just firing himself up, and he walked straight up to us, and he just screamed at us, and I was like, oh, Jesus, that's pretty awesome. Like, yeah. I can still feel it now, like telling the story again, eh? So thanks, Croc. That one just came back. But then I don't want to get lost in this because there's so many. The Croc mentioned the lighters. Like hiding them was only just getting started. We worked out. We went around one time. We opened them all up, took every single flint out of every lighter, and I'm talking, we found probably 15, we reckon, and then we kept searching. We got all the flint. We put them all back together, nice, And we got all the flints and we threw them off the back veranda so he could not have it. Every lighter he went to grab, it was just rolling. To his credit, he beat us, but, he headed straight over to the stove and he kicked the element on. We're like, what's he doing, And he got the elements on the stove hot and he went over and like, fuck, damn it, he's got us there. How do we beat that next time? We got to bust the stove, boys. No. The other one we did with the lighters, and this one seriously nearly got us in trouble. He used to like driving pretty, like just maybe he'd sit a little bit maybe over the speed limit maybe at times, and we'd worked out you could open the lighters up and and you could mess with them, dial them up a bit, and the flame would get about this high. You can do it. I don't know if you can still do it. They've probably stopped it now, but he's flying along. Might have been a little bit over 100. And we've hit him with one of these rigged lighters, and he's lit the smoke and the flame. Like it takes a couple of kicks, and you can see the gas coming out of the lighter before it starts. And it just kicked in, and it near blew his face off. And I could be wrong. You guys might remember. I think he pulled up and actually got the shits. Mum said he never swore at us or anything. I think he did that day, eh? Like, that could have been bad. I thought you were in the front seat, Mum, but anyway. But no, that definitely happened. I can remember that one. And then, there's so many more. Got to fast forward seeing the boat there. Great idea, Mum. Mum said, let's get the boat up on the ground. The more recent, my earliest memories fishing with Dad, going out of Pambula River mouth. And then I've been lucky enough to pretty much weekly for the last little while, head out with Dad. And we were out a little while ago, one of the last times he was still well enough to go out to sea, and it was whale season last year, and we're just fishing away nice and quiet, calm like this, and the humpbacks are over the side and they're heading our way. I've got the phones these days. I said, oh, Dad, he's coming over, And we didn't go to it at all. It came to us for sure. And next minute, big humpbacks just pulled up beside us and out of the water, and it's like, oh, how cool is that, Geez, Dad said, geez, have a look at him. He's a beauty. And humpbacks just ducked around behind us, and next minute, both lines. It hooked both lines. And we're both going, and he's going, Jesus Christ, I've got him. I've got him. Whoa. And I could not stop laughing. And he's like, Jesus Christ, then, cut your fucking line. Cut your fucking line. And the water's boiling, and it's like, what's going on here? And he's like, quick, we got to get out of here. It's going to come up under the fucking boat. Jesus. I'm like, no, she's right, Dad. She's right. Hang in, we're good. No, Ant, quick, wind your line up. Wind your line up. Just stuff like that just happened, eh, And earlier that day, we're just heading out fishing, and it was always exciting, and that's what it was. That was a pretty cool one. But then there's plenty of stories. I want to finish with his determination at the end, and I just want to pay tribute to Mum for just helping Dad or creating the environment that Dad could stay at home for so long. And that allowed, you know, these last few fishing trips and stuff. And because he was just adamant he wasn't going to hospital. And then, yeah, I don't know, I think it was the 5 or 6 weeks ago, Mum called in the middle of the night, 1 o'clock in the morning, and, oh, sorry, Aunt, Dad's having a fall out of bed, and he's refusing that I get the ambulance. Can you come up and give us a hand? And so, yeah, no worries, up we go. And of course, we're set to go fishing the next day. So get up there, and you know, Mum had put the pillows out. Dad was face down beside the bed, sort of, you know, looking pretty average, and a bit of a cut on his nose and whatnot, and sort of saying, I think I broke my shoulder, and all these things. And it's like, well, you won't let us get an ambulance, Dad. We're gonna, you know, I'm here. We're gonna have to get you up, you know. And he's like, yep, we're going fishing. And I'm like, righto. Mum was there, and I said to Mum, like, I'm just going to have a crack, you know, like, this is what he wants. So here we go. Pick him up and thinking, am I going to pull his shoulder out of the joint, or what's going to happen here? But he sort of, you could feel he was pretty strong on it. So we got him up, we got him in bed, and, you know, he was pretty happy, and he's just like, nah, we're going fishing. Yeah. I'm like, no worries, that sounds good. So I headed off, said goodbye to Mum. It's 2 o'clock in the morning, and this is like this, yeah, you couldn't make it up. I get back there at 6 o'clock in the morning, and he's sitting up on his chair in the shed, just like he always is, ready to go fishing. No worries, off we go. And we headed out, we're heading up the river, got our worms, pulled up, first place we've pulled up, first of the 6 lines. You had to put 6 lines in. First of the six lines is in, next couple going in, bang, we've got a fish, you know, dragged in a nice brim. And we just looked at each other, and he sort of looked at me and he said, geez, it's a shitload better than being in hospital. So yeah. And that did sum it up. Like, he fought hard, you know, and yeah, it's a shame, but yeah, it's pretty awesome that there's so many good memories flying around the valley and beyond. Where, yeah, it's been a great day so far. We're going to stop speaking now and let all you good people get another beer. Piggy's going to play a few more songs. Michael's got a couple of words just to finish up, and then yeah, we're going to convene for those that want to come down. We're going to go down to the Bolo, have a bit of fun down there, and yeah, a little bit of food down there. But yeah, appreciate everyone hanging in too. It's maybe gone a little bit longer than we thought. All those from away, I'll just reiterate on that. And yeah, I'll send out a love you, Dad, too. You know, he was a good fella, good fun, and plenty of good memories. Thanks heaps, guys.